Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art, located in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, February 1st, 2019. And as always, we'll take a look back at last week's eBay auction results, take a look and see what's coming up next week, and remind you that there's also things linked over to Catawiki, which gets over in the Netherlands. It gets updated every week with similar things over there, Chinese porcelains, bronzes, Japanese things, and so forth. But before we get started, I wanted to mention a couple of things. One of them is this. A few weeks ago, I mentioned in another video that one of the things to look out for on Republican-looking pieces, on the copies especially, is that they are transfer decorating them. And from a distance, they can look very, very convincing, but when you look closely, it doesn't hold up if you know what to look for. And we found a bowl on here this morning on eBay. It's an active listing that at a glance looked pretty good. And then we checked it a little bit, and this is what we saw. And if you look at these examples, you have one of the things you want to check to authenticate it is, one of the ways you can authenticate it anyway, if it's done this way, is that the enamels, if you look here in the green enamel areas, I don't know if you can, this is going to catch it, but there are these little black dots. Almost like what you see in newsprint, okay, filling in here, okay, and you shouldn't see little black dots. That's something no hand painting would ever result in. And over here on the pink flowers, you'll see not so much little black dots, but you see these parallel horizontal lines. All right, it's not something you want to see. Okay, and it may be that parts of this are actually hand painted, like the bird might have been quickly painted, but used only to fill in behind these areas where the dots appear. Here are a lot of those black dots on this light green leaf and so on. So you want to be extremely careful, okay, especially with Republican-looking pieces. All right. The other thing about this too is if you flip the bowl over, this mark has been put on with a machine. It's like a decal sprayed on. You can tell by the texture of it, and of course the color is horrific. All right, and the mark is of course perfectly done because it was done with a machine. All right, but that's something you want to watch out for. The other thing I wanted to mention was that a few weeks ago we had talked about something that we were going to be adding to the site that I thought you'd all find interesting, and I can go into it a little bit now. We've been in a discussion with eBay to become involved with their authentication program. And what that will mean is that once we go ahead with it, we were sort of in the final stages, is that they will add on to eBay listings. We're trying to get them to do it globally, but for right now it may just be limited to the United States with the U.S. buyers and sellers. A box underneath the bid block. If you look, you know where you bid on eBay, and then you put your number in, and down below it is the payment of things, PayPal and MasterCard and all that business. But right under that, right in that same box, will be the Bidamount logo. And if you click on that logo, it'll bring you over to a page on our site, at which point you can put in the item number, a link to the item, the title, description, that kind of thing, and your email address. And for about $10, I think it's going to be $10. It's not a moneymaker here. But anyway, we're willing to do it if it'll help out. You pay the $10 and the item gets submitted to us. You'll get an email back saying that we've gotten it, and we'll get back to you they give us up to 48 hours to respond. We'll probably respond in a lot quicker time than that, and let you know what we think of it and whether or not it's period or not, or what the story is, okay, authentic or not authentic, and that kind of thing. All right, so that's something we're adding, and we may broaden it ourselves on another page on the site at some point to cover things at live auctioneers and Invaluable, where you'll be able to give us the information. We'll take a look at it for you while the pieces are previewing, so you might save yourself some heartache and a lot of money. Because if you buy on live auctioneers and Invaluable, it's really hard to get your money back. All right, it's not like eBay where everything can be returned, but who wants to return stuff? That's the pain in the neck of it, especially if it's going halfway around the world. All right, so check back on that, and we'll do a video on it. We'll let everybody know. We'll put it on the newsletter when it comes about, but it should be in the not too distant future. But it's a little slow. There's some legal stuff to go through and all that mumbo jumbo that corporations like to have. So, at any rate, but it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming. All right. And now on to this. This was something that was on there last week. We had it in the newsletter. It was this nice-looking 18th century guglet. It was rather unusually decorated. Now, the way it was sort of sparsely done, and then clusters of flowers under the neck and that nice pink enamel around the top. And it did pretty well. It brought $473. It was a good example. And this was from a seller over in Sutton in the UK. Had that. All right, and then on to this. This ended up doing very well because he had better pictures. But the lead picture for this, as you can see, was out of focus. And this is a nice sort of Noya Straights, unusual in Noya Straights dish with the Daguan mark on it, and with these gilded characters running around the outer rim. Here's a picture of the bottom. Okay, and so forth. It ended up bringing $1,894, okay, which is a good price for that. But unusually decorated Noya pieces do extremely well. They do just great. We had the hot food pot, as you recall, last week that brought $3,400 or something like that, or $4,000. All right, here's another piece, okay. And then on to this. This was that very interesting big Famille Rose. This was about 16 or 18 inches tall. Rose Mandarin, first half of the 19th century vase. And this did very well. And one of the reasons it did so well was the handles on it were quite unusual. The handles were unusual and it was in beautiful condition. Typically, when you have mask handles on these big vases, there's just two of them, one on each shoulder, sort of framing above the scene. So you'd have this handle here and this handle, but not one on the front. So they added an extra handle. And the way the handles were done was quite beautiful. These were nice rebuses sort of coming off with these blue stippled ground, lots of brilliant gilding. And you'll notice the gilding on this vase overall was in very good condition, which is crucial in valuing these pieces. You'll notice one of the things you can always check are the gilding in the hair. If there's a lot of gold still in the hair, it means the vase was never cleaned with any harsh chemicals or ammonia or Windex or any other silliness, because those chemicals will strip. Fantastic is okay, ivory soap is fine, but nothing that's reactive like ammonia, because gold is fired onto porcelain at a lower temperature, and it's not nearly as stable as the enamels are. So the enamels will stay, but the gilding will strip right off. And you even notice here the framing, the gilding is still intact. All right, and this did pretty well. It brought $975, which is about $300 or $400 more than typically vases of this size and type bring, because of those handles and its overall condition, I suspect. All right, and then on to this, another pair of these Noya Straights, these barb-rimmed phoenix bowls, but more typical color palette, what you're used to seeing. It's a picture of the bottom, nice 19th century foot rim on that. Good deep pink enamels and so forth. One of them I think had a small hairline or something in it, but at any rate, or nicks. These brought $670, the pair. All right, which is right in the ballpark for these. That's exactly what they are worth. Noya Straights stuff is getting more and more popular all the time. All right, and then on to this was this very fine Japanese late Edo period boxwood inrow with a toggle Fu lion on top. Good coloration. This is a seller over in the UK we follow along with, see what they're getting. They have good things, and the patina on this inrow is particularly nice. Very deep, very rich, very dark, very warm. Everything you want to see. Here's a picture of the top of it. There's the end. There's the Fu lion, nicely done. Quite a bit of wear on it, a little bit smoothed down, but good surface. On this, on these old wooden pieces, the surface is very important. You want to have nice, old, undisturbed surfaces. And this one went for $552, which I think was a perfectly reasonable buy. This was a very nice box, and I think it was very good. He dated it as Meiji period. I don't agree with him. I think it's a little older than that. All right, based on the color of the wood. All right, but he tends to be conservative on age as well. All right, and then on to this was that Guangxu Phoenix plate. This was a nice one, and the seller put up, as a matter of fact, one that was at Sotheby's that we thought was a little bit finer. Not a lot finer, but a bit finer. And this was a very nice one. It wasn't up to a whole lot of money when we first saw it, and it quickly went up in price. Here's a picture of the mark on the bottom. Here it is. There's the coloration, nice color on it. And this is the Guangxu example that was at Sotheby's. As you can see, the decoration is a little more defined and that kind of thing. This one brought $8,750 at Sotheby's. and the one with a $5,000 to $6,000 estimate, this one brought $5,444, which I think is right in the ballpark. I think that's right about where it should have landed. Nice looking dish, and the seller was a nice guy. I heard from him actually. He's a fairly new seller. All right. And then on to this. This was a curiosity to me. There were two of these plates, okay, and they were virtually identical. They were from obviously the same pattern. Here's one of them, all right, and here's the other one, all right. Very similar, nearly identical. And why the seller broke them up and didn't sell them as a pair, I don't understand, all right. There's an old adage about the values of porcelains. A pair is worth 3 times the price of a single. That's typically the formula that a lot of dealers sort of look to when they're valuing things. And for some reason, this guy sold them separately, which I think was a mistake. And I'll show you why. This one, and they're both in perfect condition, and both, for all you can tell, they're the same plates, basically. Hand done, so they're slightly different. This one brought $1,019, all right? And this one ended up bringing 552, all right? And the reason there's a difference is this one sold before the other one, all right? This one sold at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This one sold a half hour earlier. And this one went for 552, okay? So what happened was this guy got it. He had the first half of the pair. Now he could throw money after it and get the second half of the pair, which ended up going for $1,000. Had he put them up together, the seller put these up together, I think he probably would have gotten $2,000 for the pair, all right? The other guy just threw it on because he really wanted it. He wanted to make the pair out of it. So he ended up sort of taking a hit on the first one and paying a bit more for the second. So he got a good buy. The buyer got a good buy. But I think the seller made a mistake on that, unfortunately. If you have a pair of things, don't break them up and sell them. Don't get clever and sell them separately, because people that want pairs lose interest quickly if they don't think they're going to get them both, okay? And that's sort of what happened here, okay? All right, now on to this. Was that Femi June Dragon vase. This was a nice one. It had a Chin Lung mark on it. It wasn't Chin Lung, but it was a nice-looking vase, and it was around 12 inches tall, nicely done dragon, in good condition all the way around. And this one was ended up selling for $539, okay? And if you think back in the past, we've had these on here. When they get big, the prices go up on these a lot. We've seen 18-inch ones on here, and they bring $1,500, $2,000 sometimes, okay? Especially these bottle form vases. They're quite nice and very desirable for collectors, all right? And then on to this, the Rose Mandarin cash bows. These are nice. These are nice export cash pots, bow pots. They were made probably around 1830 to 40, somewhere in there, 1850 maybe, but probably before that. But very fine quality decoration, and if you took the time to look at these, you'll see what I mean. This gilding, the way the relief work is modeled with these sort of wisteria vines coming down, the gilding was all in terrific shape. Look at the gilding that's here, the flaming mandalas and all that business, okay? Just in great condition everywhere you look, and high-grade decoration, okay? Very good decoration all the way around. All right, here's a nice scene of the shot of the side, and the lids were in good shape and beautifully decorated. And they went for $3,749, which is right in the range for the upper end of these. There were some cash pots on here a couple weeks ago that brought a little less, but these hollow forms, cash bows, vases, and so forth in 19th century rose mandarin and rose medallion seem to be getting, especially rose mandarin pieces, seem to be getting a little bit more traction in the export market. So we'll see how that goes, okay? But this was a nice pair, all right? And I was glad to see them do well, all right? And then there was this, speaking of rose mandarin, this was that big jar that we saw last week and talked about briefly. And I had mentioned there was another auction. There was an auction house in New England, actually. They had a pair of these coming up for a sale, and they were estimated at around $10,000, so $10,000 to $15,000. And getting back to the 3 times the price of a single rule, this was about the same size as the ones that are in that auction. It brought $3,400, and if you multiply that by 3, you come right in at $10,000, okay, for a pair. All right. This was a nice jar with a good lid, and it was overall in good condition. So it was a perfectly good buy anyway as a single. All right. This was a big pot. I think it was 20 odd inches, 22 inches tall. And then there was this great little demon on the dragon brush pot. Nice 19th century one, late Qing, but beautifully done. And it was brought, what did it bring? $440. This was from Migleri over in London. He's had some interesting things in the last year. And that was a nice little brush pot. If you like college objects and so forth, that was a good one. And then on to this was that Republican period. This is a Republican period vase. Famille Rose 100 Boys pattern vase with this brilliantly done pink upper section on here. Here's a picture of the bottom. It has a chin lung mark on it, but it's not. It's clearly not chin lung. It's obviously Republican, but very good quality decoration. Here it is with a little bit of inscriptions on here, but nice faces, nicely shaded, good enamels. And it did fine. It brought $1,855. All right. I mean, obviously, if that had been a chin lung example with that pattern, you're into, well into six figures for a piece like that. But anyway, that was a very pretty piece and very good quality throughout. Nice quality decoration. All right, and then on to this, the Blanc de Chine libation cup, 18th century, early to mid 18th century, but nice quality. This was typical with the deered stork pattern. And here's the deer, there's the stork, and here's a picture of the bottom. Nice, sort of gooey-looking unglazed paste on the bottom of it. Here's that. Here's a picture of the inside of it. These are molded, and this was a very good buy. Excuse me. It went for $232. We've seen these where they bring, $450, $550, even $650 for these cups. This was a good one. It didn't apparently have any repairs or damage to it. And, if you collect these, leave a bid. I say it a million times. Leave a bid. When you get the newsletter notification each week, leave a bid right away. Just put something on it, and that way it won't slip by, because this was a great buy if you like Blanc de Chine. This was cheap. All right. And also a good buy of the week is if you like Ming celadons and you don't have an endless wallet, because they can get pretty pricey, was this. This was an authentic Ming celadon stem cup. Nicely done. Had a couple of very, very old cracks in it, which don't bother me too much. Here they are. When you see them deep and widened like that and very dark, these are old cracks. These are not something that's happened in any time within your lifetime or your grandparents' lifetime. These are very old. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. Nicely done, concave, with sort of a conical concave shape. Nice grainy looking foot on there. I think there was a small nick out of the sidewall of the foot right there, but it didn't affect anything, and there was no crack from running out of it. And there were some characters drilled into it here, probably done in the 18th or 19th century. And it went for $191. That was a great buy, okay? Again, there are good Chinese things out there and good early pieces. If you don't have an endless wallet, you can still find them. And this was one such case. This was a good buy, like this in the libation cup. Very reasonable. Very reasonable. All right, and then on to this Kangxi Femi Vert plate with overglaze enamels. It had an old professional repair somewhere on it. I didn't investigate it too carefully. I just remember reading that. And but nice blue enamels on it, nicely colored, good-looking rim on it. This was about a 9-inch dish, and went for $295, which isn't bad. All right, good-looking display piece, nice example. All right. And here's another Femi Vert dish. This is a bowl. This was an 18th or early 19th century one, pretty clearly. The foot on it, that type of foot with the color of the paste, the way it's done. There's a little bit of pulling here and there, so it may be late 18th century with the artisanal leaf. The artisanal leaf is a little too stylized to have been Kangxi. But at any rate, it was a nice-looking bowl. And it went for $434, and it was in good shape. This had one of these sort of kicked-out rims that had one tiny little nick there. And that's it, which is usually there's a chunk out of these. For some reason, this shaped bowl tends to have repairs more often than other bowls. I don't know why. Maybe they got used more. And then on to this, the Famille Rose Moon Flask. This was a nice one, brilliantly colored, nice pink ground with these two dragons on the shoulders, nice turquoise. But the color palette on it was very compatible with each other, all very nicely done. One side had figures on it, and then if you flipped it to the other side, you'll see that it had pheasants rocks and blossoming flowers and so forth. They typically always alternated the patterns. One side would have people or people in a landscape, and the other side would be flowers or flowers with birds and insects, that kind of thing. Pretty typical. All right. This brought $947, but the coloring on it was good and strong, and it was a very pretty thing. All right. And pretty always sells. All right. And then onto this was this 19th century bronze incense burner with these big handled chimeras on it. This was a fairly big incense burner. It was around 9 or 10 inches in diameter. Good looking thing. It had one of these elaborate dragon and script Ming bottoms on it and all that business. All right, here's a picture of the side. It's an old one though. Nice old example. And I like the tails on it. I like the way the tails come off the chimeras and loop, and they did the same on both sides. Here's the other side. All right, nice looking thing. And it did fine, but it wasn't a big price. I think $348 for a big bronze like this. You know, put your hands out at 10 inches apart. This was a good sized bronze. I think it was a very reasonable buy. I kind of thought this would bring maybe 700 or 800, but that was a nice thing. All right. And then onto this was the big Fitzhugh platter. Very finely painted Fitzhugh with an armorial crest in the center, but with a Latin saying on it and some initials, but beautifully done. It had, I think, on one end a faint hairline or something, but high quality Fitzhugh decoration all the way around. Of course, the rarest of these have like American eagles on them and stuff. They bring a fortune, $20,000. But anyway, this one brought $504. But for a big Fitzhugh orange armorial platter, that's not a bad buy at all. If you collect American Chinese export, you know what I mean. Nice big plate, and they look great on walls. These big platters hang beautifully, and you can get the hangers for them. All right, and then over to this was the transitional period brush pot. Tankard rather. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. It's a nice thing, all right, and it did fine. I think when the photographer did the pictures of this, he shouldn't have shot something this white against that white a background, though, for obvious reasons, or just maybe use one light instead of all your lights because it overlit it a bit. But that's life, okay. And here's a somewhat similar tankard, but this is a tapered one that he comped it to. At any rate, this one brought $4,281, which was not an overpayment for one of these. This was a big tankard and perfectly reasonable. All right, $4,280, a very reasonable price for one of those. So there you go. All right. And then on to things that are closing this weekend. Just a couple of things. We'll have a lot more in the newsletter because we have some lists of things that we have set aside, and I don't have them on the screen. One of them is this dragon bowl. This is a nice late 19th century dragon bowl with a iron red dragon on one side and then a green enamel dragon on the other, but well colored, nicely colored. You see the same pattern also in entire tea sets were done with this. This was a very, very popular pattern. Okay. And right now it's up to $269, and it's got a couple of days to go. It closes on Sunday. So if you like it, go over and drop a bid on it. See how you do. All right, and then on to this. This was that seller last week that had listed a bunch of these Femi Vert tiles as a Republic or 20th century or something like that, and we said, nah, these are older. And they're all 19th century tiles. And we noticed that during the week he added a bunch more. There are 21 of these plaques up now. All right, some of them close tomorrow, and then a few more I think close on Sunday, and then some more on Monday. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, all these tiles came out of a screen, pretty obviously. These are typical. If you've seen old 19th century screens when they put these plaques on them, they had different shape openings. Round ones, rectangular ones, vertical ones, square ones, rounded quarter ones, these sort of shaped oblong affairs and so forth. And they obviously came out of a screen. I suspect he's got some broken ones that are also in the same screen that he can't sell. That's typically what happens. You get a screen and there's 30 of these, and 8 of them are busted because they crack very easily. A friend of mine was Peter Rosenberg, an old friend of mine who's since died. He had one of these screens in his car once driving through New York, and he unfortunately laid the screen flat in the back of his van, hit a pothole in New York City. Oh, surprise. Shattered every tile in the screen. He called me up. He was pretty sad about that. He was a great guy. At any rate, that was my screen disaster story. But at any rate, these are nice, and let's see how they do. They're all up into 150 to 400 bucks right now. They'll do fine. All right, and on to this. This is a really nice pair of Lotus form bowls. These are beautiful. Qianlong period, nice deep enamels on them. Here's a straight-on shot, and the photographs are pretty good here. Nice, clear photos, and we'll see how these do. These close on Tuesday. If I were you, I'd run over and put a bid on them. They have no bids yet. Okay, we found them in the no bid yet pile, and the opening bid's only $60 for the pair. Okay, they should do a whole lot better than that, and they'll be in the newsletter this week. All right, and then there's this bronze, this very nice late Ming, very classic form squat 3-foot bronze. All right, here it is. It's up to $9,100. Okay, and we'll see how that does. But it should do pretty well. It closes on Saturday. It closes tomorrow. But this is a nice one. Okay, and speaking of bronzes, we have this seller over in Poland who gets bronzes. He seems to know quite a bit about them. And for some reason, he oils them before he takes their pictures. And there was a famous London dealer that always used to oil his bronzes before shows and so forth. Maybe this guy's doing the same thing. I would immediately clean the oil off, but that's just me. And he has one of these. This is one of these that you've seen this form before. It's done very much like those Han green glazed pots. Very typical of, from that period, that shape. It's a Han shape. And this is an 18th century, or he has it song to Ming. I don't think it's that old. I think his dating is a little off, but I think it's, Ming, late Ming or something like that. But nice quality, all right? And it's only up to $44. It closes on Sunday, all right? If it sells within $500 of that, that's a bargain, okay? That's a nice-looking bronze, all right? And also he has this up. This is a nice, one of these 19th century gold and silver inlaid bronzes, okay? Very attractive, probably mid to late 19th century, but nice quality, beautifully cast. And this one's only up to $22. All right, so you want to check those out. Occasionally he gets bronzes I don't think much of. I think his dating is often, not often, but sometimes off. But he has a good eye for them. And these are two nice ones. He's got several others up there as well. They're all in the newsletter. All right, and then last we get down to this is very nice little late 19th century Famille Rose melon-shaped jar with its lid. Typically these don't have their lids anymore, as you know. If you've seen these around, you often see pairs of them with no lids. All right, this one still has its lid, but makes it kind of interesting. There's sort of a nice orange peel texture on it. The decoration looks good. The faces look good. No problems with this at all. Here's a picture of the bottom. And you have this sort of stepped out rounded foot, pretty typical of late 19th century pieces, and even into the early 20th, because they didn't change the way they made them a whole heck of a lot. The time didn't, the Chinese porcelain making changed very little, over any short periods of time, other than when they went to the Song to the Yuan Dynasty. Other than that, porcelain making was always sort of an evolved thing. Mid to late 19th, early 20th century, often almost impossible to distinguish, okay? And this is up to $138. It should do better than that. It should bring, $350 to $450. But it was a nice thing, good looking thing. All right, and if you haven't subscribed to us yet here on YouTube, please do. And if you're a member over on the newsletter page, get the weekly notices, please do. We do the filtering for you, so you don't have to go digging around looking for things. We check it all, put it on there, and the eBay Today page, and the forum. Don't forget the forum. Come over and visit us, leave a comment, ask a question, that kind of thing. All right, and that's it for this week. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next time, and we'll let you know more when we know more about this program with eBay and things we're going to do to try to help people along a little bit and see how it goes. All right. Thanks so much, and have a great week. Bye-bye.